Hello, beautiful Libra family, and welcome to February 2021. Now, this is a month that really highlights Aquarian energy. So for the air signs, this is great news, right? Because this is going to be energy that flows with you, that somewhat works with your natural modality, and that kind of lifts you, moves you forward. After all of that time that we spent with an emphasis on Capricorn energy, this can be really refreshing, really enlivening, really exciting times right now. And this year, of course, we're going to be working with Jupiter and Saturn throughout the year together in Aquarius. So that energy is going to ride forward past February. However, February is wild. It's Aquarius season, so the sun is here till the 18th of the month. Venus is in Aquarius almost all month. We have a new moon in Aquarius. We have a Mercury retrograde Aquarius, and then, of course, Sun, Jupiter, Saturn. So most of the energy is in Aquarius. The vast majority of our energy right now is going to be in Aquarius. And that means that we're doing some homework, I would say, however Aquarius hits for you. Now, in the Libra experience of this, right? The first 3 weeks of this month as we're working through Aquarius season, this is going to be activating heart questions. And the way that I kind of think about this for you guys is connecting your mind back with your heart again. And I think this is something that we all in our modern culture have to come back to as a practice time and time again, because it's a little sneaky when we detach our mental self from our intuitive embodied heart self, right? Because we want to be logical, we want to be practical, we want to be on top of it, we want to have our pros and cons, we want to make sense of things. And our intuition sometimes works in a very different fashion, where things are a little bit more mysterious. We're having to work a little bit more with some senses, some feelings, right? And so all of this energy in the fifth house is going to be having you focus more and more, again and again, on what feels really good. So pay attention to the signals in your body this month. Pay attention to when you clench up, when you feel closed down, when you feel like, there's a knot being held anywhere in the central part of your torso, your throat, anywhere. And notice where you feel maybe relaxed, where you feel warm, where you feel liquid gold inside. Because there's going to be really direct feedback with all this Aquarian energy working with you. And because we have a Mercury retrograde this month, which I'm going to go much deeper on the specifics of this particular Mercury retrograde over on my Patreon if you're looking for some more guidance. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of work to kind of activate this Aquarian energy and work with it. 5 of Swords. All right. The self-trust is coming up. But this Mercury retrograde is doing 3 of Swords. Yes. And that's so interesting, right? Because this is literally the heart card, right? What hurts to keep putting yourself in over and over again, right? So these 2 cards don't really speak of catastrophe looming in February. What it's speaking to is where you are self-betraying, or where you're feeling that you aren't listening to what your heart is really needing as far as shift. And that's actually what I was trying to say about this Mercury retrograde. It is an important retrograde because it's helping us review, revise, and get very honest with what is working, especially as we're navigating a completely new energetic cycle. 2 of Swords. Man, you are getting all the swords. And these are very introspective cards. All 3 of these are extremely introspective. I'm curious to see what final card wants to come out. And Justice. There you are. Hi. Come out with clarity in the end, right? So don't get intimidated by these cards, because it makes perfect sense to me. I think after 2020, right? I don't demonize that year. It was a hard year, and most of us experienced some form of trauma. Some of us experienced a ton of trauma. And however you experienced this year, even if you're somebody who felt really extreme highs, really comforted, really enjoyed being in hermit mode, maybe enjoyed this forced slowdown and enjoyed that shift, the feeling of shift, right? You probably still came through that year with some of that tension, and maybe even some habits or survival skills that were serving you in 2020. So this Mercury retrograde in the season of vast Aquarius energy is really getting us acclimatized. It's looking at what we love, what we value, and how we're doing that. It's going to hit everybody in different places. For you, it's hitting in your creativity, in your heart, in the way that you like connect your childlike joy with the rest of the world. And it's going to be asking you during Aquarius season this year, until we hit into Pisces season, and even then a little bit as we head into your 6th house of how you take care of your body and how you connect with your physical and not just your mental, right? Reconnecting these two parts of ourselves. Really asking you, are you listening to parts of yourself that maybe, you don't need to do things the same way that you were doing them last year? So this is a really great opportunity to get acclimated to Aquarian energy, to get acclimated to 2021, and to really take honest stock. Right? Aquarian energy is all about, and as you know, as an air sign, you can do this too. But Aquarian energy is all about taking the big lens perspective, zooming out enough to be able to look at something and really say with blunt honesty whether this is working or not. Okay, so let's talk about self-trust, because these cards speak to that to me. Right, 5 of Swords, yes, you may be looking over your shoulder, you may be wondering how other people are treating you, and you may be a little in your head about certain relationships, but a lot of times when we are feeling that kind of tension, right, where we feel like we have to look around and look behind us and take a look at the landscape, it's normally because there's something inside of us that we're like betraying, right? Like we're saying yes to things we don't mean. We're letting people say, upsetting things to us, mean-spirited things, or things that are a little bit outdated as far as how we treat other humans or something like that we kind of like let it slide. We shut down our voice, right? And then we start to feel like we can't trust ourselves. We can't really navigate anything else. So pay attention to where maybe you are noticing that you are shutting down what you really feel, shutting down what you really need to shift in order to like keep peace, and therefore to, surrender your voice. I'm actually reading a really great book. I believe it's called Breaking the Good Girl Myth. And it is a beautiful book. And she talks about, this is really a book for women specifically, so no offense, but I think it has a lot to do with our cultural conditioning. And one of the myths she talks about is myth of harmony, when we give up our voice so that we can keep everything peaceful and beautiful on the surface. And therefore, we start to disintegrate into lack of trust with ourselves, and we keep plugging ourselves into miserable situations. Highly recommended book if you're looking for something. I'll try to remember to leave it in the description so you can link to it. But a really useful toolbox reminder book if you're looking for guidance there. But that's where this 3 of Swords comes in. Where are you where are you just not listening to your heart, not listening to your intuitive guidance and saying, well, I just need to keep doing this the same way. Because if I don't, things are going to fall apart. Things are going to go bad. There are no other options, right? That's 3 of Swords is often about the infinity loop of our pain, where we feel like that it's so familiar that we just keep living it. So both of these cards, they're asking some pretty harsh questions. And I know a lot of Librans, we've been having some really intense readings for a while. I feel like every time I sit down with Libran, I'm thinking this is going to be some Venusian fun. We're going to relax. We're going to just talk about heart activation. And you guys keep getting these really deep questions. But here's the thing. You are being asked to sit still, right? And then not being able to see the whole picture and not being able to see the whole landscape. 2 of Swords to me is when we really need to stop trying to use our intellectual brain, right? Stop trying to use these swords over and over and over again. We have to sit still long enough to hear that wisdom from our physical bodies, what our hearts are saying, what our physical bodies are feeling, and what our intuition is telling us. A great exercise in general is if you're thinking about a scenario, whether it's a person, a work situation, a routine, something that's in your life that you've been kind of grappling with for a while. Think about going into that scenario, that situation, and notice what physical sensations come up for you and really get specific. Notice if you're feeling like a knot or like a stone in the pit of your stomach or like tension in your chest, whatever it is, and really notice. And then also have the fun of exploring if there was the dream scenario, whether that's a shift in job or the type of people you want to be around, what does your body feel then? These are going to give you really great information about where you're needing shift. And that's what all 3 cards of these cards are saying. There's something you've got to leave behind that's hurting you. and you don't have to keep doing it. And that's where justice prevails here, right? Because we're often taught we just need to put up with it. We just need to keep living it. It's going to be fine. We're going to ignore all these other sensations we have in our body, because on paper, this makes sense. Everything this month, we have all air energy in your reading. And it's funny because it's, swords energy often challenges our thoughts, our beliefs, the way we use our thoughts to make or break ourselves in the world. And this reading is speaking to you, coming out with clarity, but only after you've you've allowed yourself, not even getting honest. I don't want to talk about like tough love and like barreling down on yourself and just being harsh on yourself. I actually think it's just allowing yourself to feel how you really feel, to notice where you want that shift and that change, and therefore to gain a sense of lightness, to gain a sense of possibility. Now, like I said, February in many ways, because it's a Mercury retrograde, because we have such a conglomeration of energy in Aquarius, this is going to be a time where like things can start to move, things can start to come together, but it's mostly a setup. And the thing is, that's the majority of the work, right? How we're feeling, how we're connecting in. That's going to allow us to move forward quickly once we get into Pisces season and we're opening up. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm going to pull a card from my Animal Totem Tarot to finish off our very powerful conversation, as usual with Librans, today. So let's see what energy wants to come out of my Animal Totem Tarot, and then I'll read the message that comes with it from the book. Alpaca. Page of Pentacles. How fun is that? That's some really grounded, nurturing energy. Who doesn't love an alpaca? Let's see if I can find the page in the book. We're in Swords. Here we go. No, I'm messing this up. There's a whole way this book is organized, and I can never remember how anything works. Here we go. Page of Pentacles, Alpaca. How cute. I just love it. My mother says that all great things once started off wee. That small is not the opposite of large, it is the beginning. I know that I am not big enough yet to be of any real benefit, but over time I will become worth my weight in gold. Never think something is too small to be worth your time and effort, for you just never know what huge miracle it could unlock once it has reached its full potential. That kind of brings me back, I was just talking about like the big things that maybe we are wanting to shift in relationship, work, identity, whatever, but it also brings me back to, Mercury retrograde's about details. It's also about the details of where we feel maybe we are not listening to ourselves. And sometimes very small things we think, oh, that's just tiny, it doesn't really matter. If I don't need to worry about it. I'll just put up with it because it's small. So why does it matter? Sometimes those really tiny things are keeping our energy locked up because we can't really selectively shut ourselves off. So if we're shutting something off just to cope, we're often shutting down our whole system at some level. We're dimming it at any rate. We're just dimming it down a little bit. So small things matter when it comes to how you're treating yourself and how you're caring for yourself. So it's a really strong message in the reading today about you taking the time to honor how you have grown and changed, and therefore where maybe you don't fit the mold of how you've been living in the past. And you are allowed to acknowledge that. You are allowed to take a moment to assess and to allow yourself to even envision how you want to make shift, right? We often stop ourselves from allowing ourselves to come up with new solutions and to problem solve because we don't feel worthy of even going there to come up with some ideas, write some things on some sticky notes, or, just brainstorm with a friend, right? We just say, oh, well, it's not allowed. I can't do that. So all the cards here today are bringing us back to that practice, just letting yourself acknowledge where you're feeling pain, acknowledge where you're feeling growth, acknowledge where you're feeling a sense of change, and then allowing yourself the opportunity to open to brainstorm, to open to new ideas, to open to ways you can make those shifts. So in some ways, this is an extremely practical month. We're getting back to the basics. And the basics do not mean small, right? It's huge stuff, worth weight in gold over time. And that is really the message of February in general. Okay, I think that's a beautiful place to stop. February is always a powerful month. It always comes with some really big shifts. Just moving through Aquarius into Pisces energy, I find to be a really intensive time of spiritual digging and getting honest. So you're definitely not alone. This is a very powerful month. We're all going to be feeling that shift. However, super useful month. Like I said, I'm going to be offering a lot of support for this Aquarian work over on the Patreon. So if you're looking for guidance, I'd love to see you there. You can also find me on my website and on my Instagram. All great places to connect with me. You can find PinkLune's gorgeous jewelry on her Etsy shop. I'll leave her link below as well. And I will see you in March for more Piscean magic and on the other side of this Mercury retrograde.